Hey guys, welcome to the first ever Clutch Takes podcast. I'm here with Evan.
Here.
And today we're going to be going over NBA and NHL stuff as usual, but in a more relaxed setting. So our first topic we're going to be talking about is Dwight Howard and how he's rumored to be going possibly to the Lakers. And the Grizzlies are thinking about buying him out, and he might be going to the Lakers.
Well, I think Dwight Howard's been saying every summer that he's matured, but I don't know to believe him or not this time. And I know that they're desperate for a center. I just don't think that Dwight Howard would be a good fit. So I would just keep McGee as their center or just play Anthony Davis as their center.
Yeah, Dwight Howard has had people have called him kind of like a coach killer, and he's like kind of like a baby. He hasn't really been a good fit on almost every team he's been on, and he's way past his glory days with the Magic. And I don't know. I feel like he's still a quality NBA player, but I don't know with all the drama in LA that if he's a good fit there or not.
Also, I feel like Dwight Howard's kind of in a similar situation with Melo. They both want to play with LeBron or play in LA, but both of them are head cases. I feel like Melo's in a different situation, like in the same situation, but I feel like he's kind of like different from Dwight Howard. From the interviews I saw, he seems like people are just not giving him a chance. I feel like he deserves at least a chance for one more year to retire. I just feel like Dwight Howard every year, how many chances are people going to give him? He's just a head case. He's even causing drama off the court with the people he's been with, and
We'll go into that. It'll be rated R, but no, I'm joking. And yeah, about Melo, I just feel like Melo is a different situation. I feel like teams, when he had that iconic interview when he said, "Oh, I gotta come off the bench," they say I gotta come off the bench. I just feel like Melo, that's when he was just starting to give up, because he was like a Hall of Fame caliber player throughout the beginning of his career, and to face that realization that, oh, no team wants you in a starting lineup, I feel like that was just a tough pill for him to swallow, and especially with the game changing to more a fast-paced three-game. An ISO scorer like Melo is not always needed, and I just feel like he just needs to be like an offense guy off the bench, kind of like Lou Williams in a way.
yeah, I feel like Melo definitely seems like he's changed throughout the years he hasn't played, and I feel like now that teams are putting their foot down and saying that they don't want him on the team, if a team finally gives him that chance, I don't think he will want to blow it. So I feel like Melo would be a great player to have on the team.
I mean, Melo, the problem with him has never been scoring the ball. Even on the Rockets with his limited time, he got all the blame for being the problem on defense when the Rockets just weren't playing good as a team in general. I feel like that's unfair to put just on one guy. Even Harden and Chris Paul, they said they didn't vouch for him to leave. It was just an organizational thing.
I just feel like teams kind of wanted something to blame when things got tough, and Melo was an easy target. So they always just blame Melo if when Rockets were in trouble, they blame Melo, or OKC were in trouble, they blame Melo. But you see OKC, even when they got rid of Melo, they were still a first round exit. It was not Melo. And same with Houston. Even with Melo gone, they couldn't get past Golden State. Melo is not the problem. Melo is a great player off the bench, and people need to realize that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like Melo is definitely, like he said on his interview with Stephen A. Smith, he's like, I can't be on a roster. I can't be on a 15-man roster. I mean, teams might see that kind of as, an ego or cockiness, but I mean, come on, the man deserves a spot on some team, and he just wants to win a championship. And there's a bunch of teams that lack a scoring presence that could use just some offense. Some teams that are strictly built on defense, and they just need some offense.
Well, people always like to have the argument of young teams in building don't want Melo on that team because he'll take away from the younger players, and then teams who are in contenders don't want Melo because they think he'll ruin the chemistry. But why isn't anyone saying that about Lou Will? He takes like 30 shots a game, and he wants his sixth man of the year. I know I'm going off against Lou Will, but no one says anything about him, and he's a bench player. So if Lou Will can be on a team, why can't Melo?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like Lou Will just doesn't have the attachments to him being like the locker room thing. Like no one's really said anything bad about Lou Will. He hasn't had that rep. So Melo, since he's been in the media this whole time, just teams just don't want any part of it. It's kind of like a LeVar Ball, Lonzo thing, but in a different light.
Well, also back in the day when there was rumors Melo might join, Dwayne Wade and LeBron as a trio, I think that when Melo said he basically came out and wanted more money instead of winning. That's when people got the perception of he's cocky and he doesn't want to play to win. But now that Melo is not there for the money, because he's not going to get as much money as he was going to get back in the day. He's going to be playing to win now.
Well, Melo actually said in his interview, he said that like since he was offered that term, he's like, from where he's from, like, oh, I have that money in front of me. I'm not just gonna like leave it on the table. Like he couldn't really see himself into the future. He's just like, he kind of made an irrational decision, just being like, oh, I got a contract, I gotta take it.
Well, Melo will never get a big contract ever again. Now he's just playing to retire. I don't think he'll...
For a championship.
And a championship. But I think that at least he wants to be on an NBA team so he can retire. And, well, I guess we talked about Melo a lot, but we can talk about the Rookie of the Year predictions from multiple sources, which they said that Zion was going to win the Rookie of the Year and that the best career was going to be Reddish. I actually don't think Zion would win the Rookie of the Year because he'll probably be injured.
Yeah, I think that with Zion, his body type, we've seen like some freak injuries from him, like his shoe injury in a game when his like shoe literally just busted in half, like a freak injury, and like he totally had to like switch companies. I think he went with Jordan's brand and signed the biggest shoe deal ever, even bigger than LeBron, so just pretty crazy. But I don't know. I just think that I feel like Zion is a little bit overhyped. I mean, like, he's a good kid and, like, he's not cocky or anything like that. But I think I'm not sure if his skills will, like, translate. Because now he's, like, men against men when it was kind of like he was way bigger than everyone else before.
Well, about his body type, he's like an NFL player playing in the NBA.
Yeah.
He's really big and he's like a tank. But, injuries are a thing in the NBA. And I think the Rookie of the Year would probably go to someone with more shots. Like, I don't know, with the Summer League, I feel like, it's shown who was good and who is not. But, the Knicks will allow...
Kevin Knox or... RJ Barrett.
Yeah, RJ Barrett, sorry. Forgot his name. He had a good game one time, and he kind of shown some potential, but I feel like Rookie of the Year probably go to someone who wasn't in the last year's draft. Someone who is like didn't play last year. For example, Porter Jr. from the Nuggets, maybe. Like someone like that. I don't think this draft could win a Rookie of the Year.
I was saying like to Evan earlier that I think that last year's draft was way better than this year's draft if you look at it, because that draft had players like DeAndre Ayton, Bagley, and Doncic, and Trae Young, and Jaren Jackson, like a lot of players that you can build your team around. When in this year's draft, like RJ Barrett for a long time was pegged as the number one guy before Zion totally blew up. And RJ Barrett, the people question his like jump shot. So it's like, this is like, he's a scoring machine, but everyone says also he always goes to his left. It's like he always goes to his left. He's not good at three-point shooting, and like this is one of the top picks when it's like Luka Doncic was like dominating the EuroLeague, and Trae Young was like a flamethrower from three, Steph Curry comparable, and Bagley was dominating, and Ayton is like a rebounding machine. I just don't see it as much with like this upcoming draft class. I think it'll still be good, but not as good as last year.
Yeah, and the best career, I think Cam Reddish is a little too much when they kind of predicting that. It's just that he's not a big name, and like I don't know if he's shown like enough for me to think that he'll have the best career, because I think Morant honestly could have the best career, because even though Zion seems like he's like the most talented, like I said, he's gonna have injuries, so injuries kind of hurt people, and they hurt their careers. So for the best career, I could see Morant, because he seems like the most like all-round player and maturity.
Yeah. Cam Reddish, some people were even like talking about if he should take another year at Duke. Like people were saying that because he had an awful season this year. Like everyone says he has like probably one of the cleanest looking jump shots already in the league. Like it's really clean. And he's has the polish, but people say that he just lacks something confidence. I guess like maybe it might have been that he was the third option on a team like that, a stacked Duke team. And like he shot like under 30% from three, I'm pretty sure, and like he didn't have, I think, under 40% from field goal.
Yeah.
So he had not a good season, but I mean, the Atlanta Hawks are banking on potential, and I think he'll eventually find that. But the Atlanta Hawks are also building up a lot of potential guys like Collins and Young, and they're recently drafted. Who's number 4 overall?
Don't remember.
DeAndre Hunter.
Yeah.
He's another guy that like people are praising, like giving him like a Kawhi Leonard mock. I think that's a little, you have to wait and see for that. But
I don't think Cam Reddish will also have the enough touches on that team with all that potential.
Yeah.
To be having the best career. I think he could be a decent starter. I just don't think he'll have the best career, because like Trae Young needs touches, Collins needs touches, Hunter, so on, and it just, there's too many players on that team that needs touches. So Trae Young's going to get the most touches, no doubt.
Yeah, the Atlanta Hawks have like a pretty nice future, honestly. Like if everyone like becomes what they are, it's not like a guaranteed thing. Like busts happen all the time, or people don't develop as properly. But I mean, if everything happens like they think should happen, then that's like 4 good young players that you could pencil in your lineup.
Yeah. And about trade rumors, there hasn't been a lot actually, even though everyone thought Bradley Beal would have been traded by now. He has 1 year left on his deal. There's no rumors, which is very surprising. But there has been a trade rumor going around with Wiggins for Ibaka, which kind of also doesn't really make sense, because I thought Masai Ujiri was going to roll with the team he had.
Yeah, I'm not sure like where these rumors are coming from. Like me and Evan kind of like ironically talked about it as a hypothetical that could happen, but we didn't like expect it to come up this soon, and we don't know if it's like fake news or anything like that. But I mean, like Wiggins has like around like 4 years left on his deal. For what he's doing right now is overpaid, and if they traded him for Ibaka, that basically just be to get out of it. And that would be the Raptors banking on potential, because they have all the cap in the world.
I mean, like, Wiggins was predicted to be, like, the second best player in the NBA by this year. And he's far from that. But, I mean, he's still averaging around 20 points per game. He's still a decent scorer, even though he's not lived up to his potential right now. He's still young, like 24, 23. And when I watch Wiggins, everyone says he just lacks
his work ethic.
Yeah, work ethic. Sorry, that's stupid. But I don't know why I said it like that. But, but I feel like Wiggins from Canada, if he went to Toronto, I feel like
he's playing in front of his own city.
Yeah, and he would work out more. He has really good mid-range. He can shoot the 3 really well. He's very athletic.
And the Raptors have a really good development system. Like, all of these defensive-minded players are coming to the Raptors. Like, Hollis Jefferson is, like, basically all defense. Well, he can score a little bit, but he can't shoot the 3 at all. Same with Stanley Johnson. He had a higher potential, but he's still stuck with his defense. The Raptors are all, like, defense. So if it's, like, even with Kawhi Leonard leaving, there's so many players that play defense on this team that I feel if Wiggins just comes into that environment where everyone is so defensively minded, that the defense will come and he'll become a better work ethic to keep up with everyone else.
Yeah, that's true. And Masai Ujiri has not failed. Like, he's seen players and he's really good at looking at potential from really low draft picks. Like we've talked about, Pascal Siakam is the leader, like the leading scorer on this team. And
Diamond in the rough.
Yeah, and he was like around 27th pick in his draft. Van Fleet was like a nominee for the Finals MVP, and he was not even drafted. He was undrafted. And Powell, second round pick. So if Masai hasn't even given up on Wiggins, if this is true. So
yeah, the Raptors won the championship without a lottery pick, so that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, like I'm saying, everyone has given up on Wiggins, and if this trade rumor is actually real, then that means Masai hasn't given up on Wiggins, and he sees something that no one else does.
Yeah, I'm definitely like excited to see where this goes, if anything comes to fruition. And honestly, with whoa,
Excuse me.
If anyone, if Wiggins does fulfill his potential, it could be kind of exciting because with Kawhi Leonard leaving, the small forward spot is open for the taking, as Nick Nurse has even said to maybe experiment with Siakam at the small forward. So obviously they want someone to fill that void and continue to compete. As like Masai said, like we won in Toronto, we want to continue winning in Toronto. So I feel like Masai isn't necessarily, I don't think he wants to necessarily rebuild. He's done it the unconventional way. He's done it with like signing Fred VanVleet, like you said, getting a late pick with Pascal Siakam. He'll find a way to make the team competitive, and I really like that. He's never wanting to fold or tank, especially with this new NBA lottery system. Like teams, like the Knicks moved all the way down to the third pick when they were last.
Yeah, and I feel like people said like, oh, Kawhi Leonard is Toronto, and Kawhi Leonard is the only reason Toronto is this good. But from all the pieces together, Toronto has a decent future, and with Wiggins, if he pans out to be somewhat close to his potential with under Masai Ujiri's magic, I mean, you can like watch out for Toronto again. That would be insane. But anyways, yeah. Also, I was gonna say about Ibaka, he's like the second center. Like Gasol is gonna be starting, and he's not gonna be a starting power forward, because Siakam is the starting power forward. So Ibaka is gonna be on the bench, and I feel like Ibaka is better than being on the bench. So his inquiries are going to be more effective on a different team where he could start.
Yeah, and Ujiri was like praising Ibaka, saying he's having his best season. Like Ibaka's found a home in Toronto, but the team is like investing too much money right now in centers, as like with Gasol getting picked up and Ibaka getting picked up, like you probably want to keep maybe one of them, unless you have like a center that could be coming in the wings, which I don't really know of anyone right now. But I mean, like that's way too much right now. If they were to re-up them, like I don't know if they want to take that money to put so much money into the center position.
Yeah. And the last thing we were talking about in the NBA, I was just thinking about is everyone's always talking about D'Angelo Russell, and if he was just a filler for Klay Thompson. And people are wondering, is that core going to stay with Curry, Klay, Russell, Green, and also Cauley-Stein? Like, is that going to be the starting five for the future, or are they going to move Russell at the trade deadline, like people are saying, like move him to the Timberwolves?
I honestly think that's kind of like a time will tell scenario, as they're all, in my opinion, guards, and like a 3-guard lineup is like really small. And like Cauley-Stein isn't really an opposing center. Like that team is just really small, and I don't know. I feel like they need a little bit more size than that. And Klay Thompson and Curry has like always been the backcourt, and I feel like Klay would be kind of like disrespected if he had to like move to the small forward because he's been so loyal to the Bay, and like I don't know, I feel like that should be their backcourt, and I don't know if D'Angelo Russell, because he's been a point guard, I don't know if he wants to move to the small forward, so it's a confusing situation, but we'll see how it works.
Yeah, that would D'Angelo Russell at small forward would honestly not look that good, and to me, it looks like it's kind of like a temporary thing because they don't want to, because the West is so hard that if they didn't have Klay throughout half the year, like they could potentially fall out of the playoffs, like people are saying, since the West is so tough.
But I still believe in the Warriors to make playoffs.
Well, now that D'Angelo Russell is there,
yeah,
to fill in for Klay, but I believe he'll be traded when Klay comes back for some pieces.
They're not going to openly say that he's a placeholder. We signed him to keep him. It's like they're going to say all that stuff, and then they can just turn around and trade him. Yeah. We changed our mind all of a sudden.
Yeah. And moving to the NHL, Marner, I don't know why, he's talking to a Swiss team.
Yeah, I don't know. This is getting a little bit ridiculous. Like, he's talking to Zurich, Matthews' team that he played for before he came to the NHL, and I don't know, this is like, I feel like he's getting so many outside sources to use as leverage, like, oh, if NHL teams aren't going to give me leverage, I'm going to go talk to Swiss teams. Like, Marner doesn't want to play with a Swiss team. Like, these smoke screens are just getting a little bit ridiculous. Like, if he went to the Swiss League, even if it was just for a year, it's kind of like Kovalchuk almost, like how the Devils were trying to give them, like they gave him that big deal and he actually did sign it, unlike Marner, but then he goes to the KHL. It's just, I don't know, it's kind of disrespectful, and
especially to his own city. I mean, he was born in Toronto. Yeah, he's a Toronto kid. I don't understand. If he left, like, that would be like so disrespectful, and like I don't understand how, if I played for my home team, that would be a blessing.
And they're not even bad. They're on the come up.
Yeah, it's not a bad situation. Like, they're a cup contender next year, and he is not taking that chance because NHL players, for example, Joe Thornton, which we'll talk about later, he is one of the greatest players to play, and he's never won a cup. Jarome Iginla has never won a cup, and Marner has a great chance to win a cup, but he's not going to take it because he needs $2 or $3 million more. Like, come on. Like, is money that desperate? Is players that desperate for money nowadays? Come on. I feel like Marner, I don't know if he's just being influenced by his dad or his agent, or if it's just him, but, like, someone is being greedy, and they got to stop because his career could look really bad. If he goes to the Swiss, he's going to be forgotten. Like, no one's going to remember Marner for being on a Swiss team. Or if he goes to a bad team like Columbus, now is bad, or, say, Islanders, he's not going to win a championship because he's going to have a huge contract which won't allow other players to come to that team. Yeah. He's not going to win a cup. He's not going to be remembered.
Yeah, and Marner, people forget, like, some people might say, you know, like the chicken and the egg with John Tavares, but the fact is that the season before, when Tyler Bozak, like an average, like, middle six center, was his center, he only put up 69 points, which is still like a good season for his second year. But with John Tavares on his line, he racked up like 94 points, which is like a huge increase, like a 25-point increase. And like, I feel like John Tavares has been doing this his whole career. Like, people like P.A. Parento and Matt Molson, Josh Bailey, people that are average players who still have talent, and then John Tavares just unlocks that talent and like makes them a better player. Like Matt Molson, who scored 30 goals multiple times in the NHL, is still playing professional hockey, but it's in the AHL. He doesn't have a single team, and John Tavares made this guy a 30-goal scorer.
Tavares earned the contract he's gotten. He's been like a perennial 80-plus point player, 30-plus goal scorer his whole career. And he's been playing with players who are not top-tier players. And Marner, even though it's like he didn't play with Tavares last year, he still played with JVR and Bozak. JVR is still a pretty decent player.
He was getting power play time too.
Yeah. Like, Marner is playing with Matthews on the power play. Marner is not the best player on this team, but Tavares was when he was on the Islanders. Tavares deserved that contract, and he made Marner better than he actually is.
Yeah, this new wave of NHL, as like before it was like your entry level deal, and then you sign kind of like another team friendly deal, and then your third contract is when you cash in. Like that's when like
Closer to your 30s.
yeah, that's when Patrick Kane and Jonathan Taves cashed in.
Yeah.
And that's when like Stamkos cashed in and John Tavares.
RFAs are banking on their potential rather than back in the old days where
When you prove something.
yeah.
Like they're saying like I already got this and I'm going to sustain it forever when like injuries happen, and you should be able to like say like this is my resume, I've done this. Like you just come off your entry level deal, like you're just that's 3 years into the NHL. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Even though this is an NBA player, Michael Jordan has stated that like nowadays, I know he's talking about NBA players, but he kind of refers it to any like athlete or any sports that he's talking about is the younger generations now. They come into the league like entitled and thinking they want the money, but Michael Jordan explained how back in his day he had to earn his money, and I don't think these young guys understand how like frustrating it is for like teams to pay that money when they don't know if they're going to keep on doing that. Like you got to prove it for at least like your first half of your career, then you cash in.
No, I mean like MLB, like the players get way bigger contracts, but at the same time, they have like 6 years of service time, 3 years regular or you're under team control, 3 or 4 years, and then you have a few arbitration years. So those arbitration years usually aren't that high, and then you get your huge paychecks like your Bryce Harper and your Manny Machado when they're like $200-300 million. But that's also a bigger market. The NHL is a smaller market than those leagues. But
no offense to our RFAs, younger players now, but sorry, but no one should be being paid more than McDavid. No one's better than McDavid in that age group.
People are already saying that like McDavid's deal will eventually look like a bargain with all like the cap going up. Like
it hasn't gone up though.
I know, but like people are saying like they're assuming, but like I don't know. I would be like not so sure with Gary Bettman, as Gary Bettman is like he's not had a good track record.
We already talked about that idiot in another video, but
yeah.
Well, now we could talk about like the Devils, and we were talking about
Nikita Gusev.
Yeah, and that team, how they're going to be exciting with all the new ads.
Yeah, I mean, like, Nikita Gusev coming from the KHL and the Golden Knights having his rights and shipping him off because they were over the tax and selling kind of low on him. That's, like, a trend we kept talking about earlier about teams. Can you stop burping, man?
Sorry.
Anyway, as I was saying, teams selling low on players because of the cap reasons. But I feel like Nikita Gusev, I mean, this guy hasn't played an NHL game, and he just got like a 2-year, $9 million deal, $4.5 million annual value. That's like pretty like high for like someone who hasn't touched the ice. Like I just think like this guy has so much potential, and he recently came out and said he's going to try to score more points than Nikita Kucherov. I think that's a bit bold, but we'll see how good he is.
Well, they have a good team. Like, they've already had a good defense. Like, Severson, Butcher, you name it, Vatanen. Like, they have, like, Mike Green. You can name, like, a bunch of players on that defensive core that's really good. Like, a really sturdy defensive core. Devils have they've always had a good defense for many years. Their goaltending situation is a little iffy, but I mean, Schneider, I feel like it's time to give up on him, but like Blackwood, the young guy, he looks pretty good. Like, he looks like he could potentially take the starting role.
He played like a small sample size last year, and he performed really well. Obviously, teams will adapt to him and they'll know more of his tendencies. But honestly, from what I saw from him, he looked like a pretty solid goalie, calm in the net. And the Devils just know how they just get goalies right. So I think they'll do well with Blackwood.
Yeah, and they've really like polished their offense. Oh, I also forgot PK Subban on the defensive core.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he had a bad year last year, but that's because of injuries. But he, not long ago, he was a Norris Trophy winner.
Yeah, just last year.
Or nominee. Yeah, and that's a really, really big puck moving defenseman that they needed.
They're the only team able to take on his contract, like the new NHL, with the cap.
Yep.
And they have solidified their middle of the ice as they've drafted now 2 number 1 overall picks that are both centers, and Nico Heecher and now Jack Hughes. So that's a really good 1-2 punch down the middle.
And like this, like they have like Gusev, Hall. Hall was like a Hart Trophy winner. Palmieri, Simmons, and like you said, that centers, Zajac, Coleman. They have a bunch of depth in the offense, really top end offense too. And also, this could be like a make it or break it year for Zacha, as if he doesn't perform this year, it could be safe to say that he's a bust.
Yeah. Anyway, speaking of someone that's unsigned but who is a UFA, is Joe Thornton of the San Jose Sharks. And there was rumors that he could retire, but he joked around saying like, "Oh, I don't got anything else to do. I'm going to play till I'm 50." I obviously think that he's joking around when he says that. But, I mean, I feel like he'll end up signing again like a 1-year deal once season comes, as he's going to go out on a more like solid note with the San Jose Sharks. Like, he wants either like, people to recognize, or I feel like that's just like respectful for Joe Thornton, as he's had such a great career and his legacy as one of the greatest playmakers of all time.
Well, as my favorite player since growing up, I feel like he's a top 15 all time scoring in like points, and like he's top 10 in assists. Like, he's one of the best playmakers of all time.
In an era that's harder to score.
Yeah. And he just knows how to make plays with like little amounts of time, and really good puck moving skills. But I feel like even though it's like he's older, he still put up like 50 points.
Yeah,
this year. There. Like, that's still pretty good. That's a top 6 player, even though he's like almost hitting his 40s. And I feel like he has like at least one or two more years in him, and to at least get a shot at winning the cup. Like, Iginla did that. He bounced around teams. I don't think he should bounce around teams, but Iginla tried to win a cup, going to Boston, LA, and other teams to win a cup, but he couldn't. But I think Joe Thornton should at least give it 2 more tries to get a cup in San Jose.
Yeah, I wonder that if Joe Thornton, like, either the Sharks are not doing well or he still hasn't signed a contract, that he'll be kind of like what Rick Nash was in the past, just kind of like jumping on for like a playoff run and trying just to get that cup, as he's deserved it. Like, he's deserved to be like a complimentary player to ride along to win the cup, as so many great players have gone their whole careers without winning a cup, and I just feel like he deserves one, and I wouldn't be mad if he jumped on a contender and won a cup.
I mean, he's still a good player. Like I said, he can show leadership. He's a good playmaker. Great 2-way center. He's a little slow, but I mean, doesn't matter if you're
slow Joe.
Yeah, but he's still a big presence in the middle of the ice. And I think his playmaking ability is like really good. Like, he can like spark some good players, like Svechnikov, for example, could make him into a 30-goal scorer. Help other young players get their goal scoring out.
And lastly, the last topic we want to talk about is Jesse Puljijarvi, as he said that he wants to trade out of Edmonton, and this is another botched draft from Edmonton, as we've seen, they missed out on players like, who did they miss out on? They missed out on like a bunch of players who have had successful careers, and I just think like Puljijarvi, they gotta trade him before his value hits like rock bottom, as he hasn't really shown anything in the NHL and not really dominated the AHL too much either. And he's a big body, and I just feel like he's like a guy that if he goes to a new team, he can have a fresh start and possibly become a top 6 player. So when I heard like in the beginning when they wanted a third line player as the return for Jesse Puljujarvi, it's like what do you want, like Connor Brown, like a player like that? Like that's really selling low, but I guess it shows how like wrong this Puljujarvi experiment has gone for the Edmonton Oilers. Not a Nail Yakupov situation yet.
Well, if you look at it, like things like this happen all the time where players don't fit with the teams, and you look at like Lindholm from Carolina. He was like a 40-point player, goes to Calgary, turns to a 70-80-point player. So if Puljujarvi like gets traded only for a third line forward, and he becomes a player that's like phenomenal, like that's gonna be another bad trade like that's in the books for Edmonton.
I honestly think like I'm kind of being, if I've watched like an okay amount of Edmonton games last year, and he was definitely a bad situation, getting up and down, kind of like hurting his confidence. But from what I saw, I don't know, he looks a little bit out of place. He's not like the best skater. He has a really good shot, but I just think he needs just like a new system, a new fresh start.
Yeah, I think that's all we're going to talk about today. Not too much going on in the sports world since it's, bad times.
Yeah. But I hope you guys enjoyed the first podcast. If you guys want more of these, we'll keep trying. And once the NHL season and NBA season pick up, we'll definitely be sure to make these because they're a lot of fun to make. And until then, we'll see you guys next time.